All right, everybody, Hudson here. In this video, we're going to talk about setting up your Nikon Z9 for landscape photography, utilizing the shooting banks and the custom setting banks using setting C. I'm showing you how I set my camera up. I hope it's kind of illustrative for you, and that working through the process of how I'm setting my Z9 up will illuminate how you should maybe tweak it and adjust it, but set up your own, and the walkthrough of how I adjust all my menus and settings and banks can help you out in your own journey towards getting it set up and dialed for the kind of shooting that you like to do. Now, I went through in the first video, this is the third of 4 videos. First video was a walkthrough all the menus, really long, really detailed. I talk about how custom settings banks and shooting banks work, how to label them, copy them, change them around, how to back up your whole menu system, how to customize the controls and how I customize my controls and iMenus and everything else. This is going to be a quick hit, how to adapt what we did in that video to just shoot landscape and bank C of both the custom settings and the shooting menu. It's a real quick hit in comparison. So let's dive in here. Let's have a look at what I'm talking about. I am still, I believe, if I hit my iMenu, I'm in bank B. We just finished up with the action bank. So you can see we've done standard and we've done action on both custom settings and shooting. So we're going to dive in and let's start in the custom settings banks. We're going to copy our standard bank like we did for action. We're going to copy our standard bank. We just click to the right while you're hovering over standard, and we're going to copy it, and we want to bring it down to C and hit OK. I've already done my settings, so I'm not going to do that, but you guys can touch the C, touch OK, hit the center button on OK, and that is going to copy all the settings from our standard mode into custom settings bank C. Now let's rename it. We go to the right again in it, and we're going to say rename, and it's blank right now, and we're going to call it landscape. L-A-N-D-S-C-A-P-E. I love that you can use the touch screen. I totally screwed that up. There was supposed to be an S instead of an R. They're next to each other or something, so I am going to just hit the S and then delete. Now we've got landscape, and we're going to say OK. If you hit the back arrow, it won't rename it. We come back, now we have a landscape bank. We've copied all of our standard settings to it. Remember, each of these banks is like a blank slate factory defaults. You can set up everything you want in A. It's going to be right there when you come back to it, but you move into B, if you haven't set up anything in B, it's going to be just like you took the camera out of the box again. It's like 4 different ways to set up your custom settings and your shooting settings, both for video and stills. All right, let's do the same thing for our video recording and photo shooting menu banks. It's all one bank for those 2 menus. So we're going to go in here, again, same thing. We go up to the standard one, we hit copy, bring it down to C, copy those standard settings into C. I'm just going to hit back. You guys have done it, it's going to take you back in. I'm going to go down to C, I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to rename it. Now you guys can just stick with landscape if you want, L-A-N-D-S, oops. Let's go delete S-C-A-P-E. I'm going to hit a space. I'm going to hit the symbols menu twice and hit the open parentheses, and I'm going to say 4K, because I also put video settings in here, space, and I'm going to say 10 and just a small, actually, no, I don't want to, I can tap. I'm going to go to BIT, 10-bit. So this is my mode for shooting really high quality video with more dynamic range. Oh, I don't want that. I'm going to hit the close parentheses. Done. Okay, okay. So now I go back. I've got my landscape 4K 10-bit. All right. So I'm going to select that. I'm there in my shooting menu. And let's just look again. You know, if we're out here, we're in C. Our custom settings are, I'm going to go into C for landscape. That's how I actually select. I customize my iMenu so that the top, middle 2 are the shooting menu and the custom settings menu, and it's real easy to navigate which one I'm in. And it's important to be remembering that when you're out shooting. Okay, so let's set them up. There's not a lot of changes to go on. We're in the photo shooting menu here. I'm going to run down, and the main change I'm going to do here is, well, I want to change, where was ISO? Did I see ISO sensitivity settings? I want to make sure that my ISO is not set to auto. I want my base ISO 64, and I don't want auto turned on when I'm doing landscape. I want to do everything manual. I want to go down to my autofocus settings. I want to make sure I'm in AFS instead of AFC like I would have been with my normal mode. And I want the area mode to be pinpoint. I like pinpoint. Some people like single point. Pinpoint just lets me highlight some tiny thing out in the landscape and nail focus on that. So I'll lock focus on pinpoints with that. I'm not too worried about subject detection options. I could leave that in auto if I wanted to. You can always change that around from the eye menu while you're out working. All right, so that is that. Now, that photo shooting menu is customized to my desire. Now, if I go into the video recording menu, I'm going to jump into the file type, and I'm still going to be shooting 2160, 24 frames per second. That's my sort of filmic 4K look. But I want to go in here, and instead of it being an 8-bit movie, I want to do a 10-bit H.265. That's just going to give me more dynamic range. It's a bigger video file, takes a lot of card space, and takes a high-powered computer to edit, but it'll get me really great quality video in much more contrasty scenes out in nature. So it kind of goes for me along with the landscape shooting settings. All right, so that's it for the video recording. Now I'm going to jump into my custom settings, and I want to just run in focus. We've already set up. AF activation should be back button. I want my controls. There's not a whole lot that I actually change, to be honest with you. There's not a whole lot that I change. You could run around here, tweak it how you want. You could limit your release mode selections, whatever. You could go into your controls and make sure that in your controls, you're customizing it so that when you're shooting, you have that bracketing burst capability. You have your aperture controls. I don't really change a lot. I'm kind of setting it up to keep it consistent with a C mode in my custom settings. It's not much different from my standard settings. Maybe as I tweak it shooting landscapes, it'll be good to have it locked into C. But it's good to have C and C both in the custom settings and in the shooting mode be consistent, especially for these videos. But as you go through tweaking it while you're out shooting landscapes, it'll lock it in if you're in C, and it won't be changing it for your kind of running around or your action photography modes. So that's essentially it. There's nothing else I really need to change. Now I am going to go into my menu, and under Save Load Menu Settings, I'm going to go ahead and save those menu settings. That's saving them to the card. And as I talked about in our first video, I make sure I put delete in my menu so I can delete all pictures instead of formatting the card, because formatting the card will also get rid of those saved settings. And those saved settings are a great way. All you got to do is down to Save Load Settings, load the menu settings, and reset the defaults to where you like your menus. If you go through and you're tweaking things and you find a way that you like to set the camera up better, by all means, save it again so that you set that as your new restore point. Remember, these banks that we're using are fluid. They're bookmarks. They remember where you were last. If I'm in shutter priority here, that's the one other thing I'm going to do. While I'm in both of these C banks, I want to make sure that I go into manual mode. So I'm in manual mode, not auto ISO. I'm choosing shutter speed. I'm choosing aperture. That's all going to get remembered because when we're in our shooting menu, our photo shooting menu, you remember I'm off to the side. If I go all the way down so I get back to the top of this menu, the extended menu banks are turned on. As long as those extended menu banks are turned on, it's going to remember what mode you were in, manual, shutter priority, aperture priority program, and what your shutter speed, ISO, or your shutter speed settings are, and your aperture settings are. So that's really, really handy. So I'm going to make sure that my mode for landscape is manual. All right, and that's essentially it for setting up the camera so that I can quickly flip into there. Again, the way that I'm going to do that while I'm out shooting, I'm in that pinpoint AFS mode. Everything's manual. I could hit the center of my joystick to center up that tiny little pinpoint autofocus setting. I'm going to hit the eye menu, and I can choose whether I'm in standard, action, or landscape. All right, boom, it's done. If I want to change up my custom settings, standard, action, landscape. Boom, done. So that's how I jump around between them, is by programming them into the eye menu. We went through the whole eye menu and customization stuff in video one, which is much longer. All right, everybody, thanks so much. You know, if it's your first time checking out this channel, I hope you'll check out more of what's on offer. There's new videos every Thursday on all things photographic. And, you know, hit me up with input, feedback, you name it. I really take all of those comments and emails into account when I'm directing content for what I produce. Once again, I keep all the gear that I use and love linked on my site at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. And you know, that using those links helps me out, and I hugely appreciate it. It helps support the content I create. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you're having fun with your Z9.